More on news from BP. Colin McLean used to be a big BP fan, but in June he sold his holdings. He joins us now from SVM Asset Management in Edinburgh, Scotland. Colin, thanks so much for joining us this morning. So you sold in June. Would you buy back now that it looks like a kitchen sink quarter for BP, or are there still too many unknowns out there for you?
I think it's still too early to buy back. The stock should trade at a discount to other oil majors, and I'm less concerned about the clean-up and other costs just now, although they could run on, but than I am about its future earnings. One of the big attractions for us was its dividend yield. That should be resumed next year, but perhaps only at half the level, and I think there's a real risk that production won't be able to grow in future, that in fact it won't be able to drill as much and replenish its reserves. So its replacement ratio doesn't look too good at the moment, and we need to see that picking up.
So Colin, it sounds like at least financially you feel like all of BP's cards are on the table, but it sounds like you're more concerned about things that are harder to put a price on, and that is the way the company is going to manage its operations. We know it's going to become smaller, and you're saying really what's going to drive profit growth. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I think it's going to have to change its business model. It has been built in the past. Its strategy has been deep water expertise, Gulf of Mexico expertise in particular, and also a strong balance sheet. It's also pushed down a lot of responsibility onto divisional directors, and I think it's going to have to pull back some of that if it's going to deal with safety. So I think it's going to have to perhaps centralise a bit more and change its way of operation, and we need to see what the new BP in style is going to look like.
Colin, we know that the company is looking to sell $30 billion worth of assets. Do you think, from what you know of their plans, that they are selling in the right places? In other words, they seem to still be prioritizing the U.S.
I think they will make some sales elsewhere in the world, even in the Far East and other areas. They haven't so far shown much inclination of selling downstream assets, which would be perhaps more radical. But I think the market views them as having got quite a good price for the assets they sold. It hasn't taken too much by itself off earnings, and if they can manage to find non-core assets that are not contributing materially to earnings, it does seem to be quite a good market for making disposals at present. So I think it's not under pressure to sell, so it should be able to get good prices, and I think the market would take that well.
So Colin, I heard you say you're going to wait to buy shares of BP again, but before we leave you, what do you make of the management change? What do you make of Tony Hayward stepping down, leaving, and Bob Dudley in?
Well, I think it certainly will reassure markets, not only in the way that Bob Dudley has been handling things in the Gulf, but he's also been seen as having managed the Russian operation TNK very well. It was a very effective operator while he was there. So I think he's rated by the markets, and it was going to be an orderly transition. I think there's been perhaps less change in the board, and than perhaps investors would like, and I think we'll need to wait until we get nearer to October before we can hear what Dudley's vision of the company is going to be.
Sounds like you think more changes are going to come, Colin, particularly on the board. We thank you in the meantime for your time. Colin McLean joining us there from SVM Asset Management.